to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So, let's dive in. All right, friends, we have an amazing show for you today here on Our Future is Kind podcast. I am joined by no less than one of my favorite celebrities, somebody who is a very close dear friend of mine. She's one of the smartest people that I've ever met with one of the biggest hearts that I've ever seen. So Charlie Saffro, we're really glad to have you here today. Let me just tell everybody a little bit about you first. Charlie empowers leaders to uncover their everyday power, step into their influence, and drive extraordinary outcomes. As the CEO and founder of CS Recruiting, Charlie has seen firsthand that true leadership goes beyond traditional metrics. It relies on fostering engagement, trust, and collaboration. A distinguished thought leader, keynote speaker, and TEDx presenter, Charlie's passionate about inspiring audiences to rethink their ability to make a difference and build a culture they want to be part of. Charlie's commitment to a more hopeful, human-centered future of work makes her a vital voice in today's evolving landscape. By modeling authenticity and openness, she demonstrates how leaders can create ripple effects that build cultures where people truly thrive. Charlie Saffro, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was beautifully read. Makes me think I need to cut it a little, but thank you. I'm happy to be here and feel the same way, excited to talk and just catch up. I think what we have to say is valuable for anyone to hear, so let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So those of you who are listening or watching this podcast episode, please pull out your notebooks now and start taking notes, because Charlie is full of great wisdom, great strategies. You're going to want to hear what she has to say, especially when it comes to bringing kindness into the corporate space. So, Charlie, we had a chance to spend some time together at the tail end of 2024, and when you said something to me, it just really resonated, and it was that people don't really necessarily know what anybody else is going through, right? Nobody knows what anybody else is carrying, and that stuck with me. But I'm wondering, can you just tell everybody here what do you mean by that?
I'm so touched that I influenced you that way. I don't even remember saying that, but I think that has always been a little bit of my jam. And I'm thinking back to where it came from, and it probably came from like the hardest time in my life. And I can put myself back in that place. In my second job out of college, so what was I, 24, 25, my father, he had been diagnosed with cancer, was sick for 6 years. Really, they gave him 6 months when they diagnosed him. So, 5.5 years that we didn't expect to have him. But he neared the end of his life during this job. And I would go to work on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And before work, I'd take the bus, stop at Starbucks, go visit him in the hospital, go to work, do my thing. Not to say that my team wasn't compassionate and they didn't care, but it wasn't their burden, and that's how I felt. And maybe, and then I would leave work and go to the hospital and sit there. So I went home to my, studio apartment and go to bed. And I just remember like sitting in a meeting and I was exhausted and I was drained, and I like looked around and I'm like, these people, everyone like probably went out to dinner last night, had, a great night's sleep, woke up, had a great breakfast, and I was like, but maybe not. Like, and I kind of went into it like resenting them. Like, they have no idea what I'm going through. And since then, I realized like we're all going through something every day. And it's not a comparison. We're not trying to top each other with whose trauma and issues are harder. But I think you just have to look at people, and the more connection you have with your colleagues, the more you're going to sense it and know. And that makes going to work a pleasure if you're working with people who can see that and support you. So yeah, I think it's such an empathetic thing for a leader to do, but I don't think we see enough of it.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's very possible for a leader to show up and be thinking about what are your milestones and what are your Q1 end goals, and really get into like the day to day and just go into autopilot mode. So you lead your own recruiting company, and you have how many people on your team?
We have about 20 on our team today.
Okay. And so how do you as a leader try to key into and think about very deeply about how those 20 people are going through it? I mean, they show up and they give you their all, and some days are good days and some days are hard days. How do you key into what their experience is like and then support them?
But I think in a company, it happens very unintentionally and should always be unintentional, but there has to be a turning point where it becomes intentional as the company grows. And so when I look back, it's like, well, that's my nature. If I'm going to hire someone and they're going to be my employee and I'm going to count on them, I want them to know they can count on me. I want them to know that I care about them. And when we sit down for a meeting, like, how are you? How was your weekend? And it's up to them how they want to share and connect. So I think it was just innate in the beginning, and I gave employees that level of attention. I wanted to know who they were behind their title. I saw their soft skills more than their hard skills. And as we've grown as a company, you realize that it's not innate for everyone. And we put things in place that, sometimes feel a little process driven. But I'll give you an example. Like we do this thing called Shuffle. And so every month, you're paired up with a random person in the company, and you are given a time on a calendar. You hop on, and it's a random person. So I don't know who I'm going to talk to Tuesday at 2:00. We get on, and then it feeds us a series of questions, and we can kind of choose what we want to talk about, but kind of like fun, coffee table style questions. And like, that is something that it's not mandatory, but of course everyone wants to do it. And what an amazing way to learn about people. That's just one little thing, but the whole idea of like, I'm always going to reach out and connect because that's who I am, but you do have to encourage others and kind of make the space for it to happen.
Yeah, when I was at my last corporate job, we would start every one of our team meetings with gratitudes. We'd take 15 minutes and go through the 15 people on the team, and everybody had 1 minute to say, hey, it's my anniversary tomorrow and I'm so excited about it. Or, hey, my tomatoes are finally growing and I had to share them with my neighbors. And it humanized everybody. But let me just ask you this, because there is a counterpoint question. What do you say to a leader who says, we don't have time for all of that fluffy mumbo jumbo, holding hands, singing kumbaya stuff. We don't need that. We have to get to work.
What I would tell that leader is that small changes add up. And I'm not talking about implementing a whole program and setting aside a budget and a team to be accountable. I'm talking about creating a culture where you lead by example and demonstrate that you care about humans as a leader. And I think that should come very naturally. But I think the other side of it as a professional and a recruiter, that is the number one retention strategy, is making sure your employees feel valued and appreciated. And then on the flip side, it becomes your number one attraction strategy. So, you work at a company where the leadership takes care of you. It's a cycle, Mike. Like it's any other cycle in life. Like we feel good. We feel like we're contributing. We feel appreciated. So we produce and we're fulfilled. And then I stay because I'm happy, and I get another offer and I don't accept it because I know what I've got here. And then people from the outside want to come work there because we're just going through our motions, but we're a happy, calm, fulfilled team. And I think that shows. And so, like, I would debate this with any leader. I might not be able to, pull up a spreadsheet and show you the exact ROI, but I will tell you as a recruiter, it is invaluable, like caring for people. And it's as simple as like make them feel like they're more than just a part of a machine. They're not just a cog. Like what simple little things can you do to make your colleagues, employees, reports just feel like human? It's not common. And that's why it stands out. And that's why it's unexpected, and it leads to such, it leads to results. There's no question.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt either. Some of the most memorable, times that I had in any company, in any role, was where somebody either showed me great unkindness or great kindness. It was like those are the moments that really stick out, is when somebody yelled at you and they were absolutely wrong and you knew it, but they embarrassed you in front of everybody. Or they were super kind because they could see that you were a little bit down and you were kind of slow in your deliverables that week, and they reached out and they said, "Gosh, Michael, are you okay?" So Charlie, I have this question for you. How do you make sure that you are thinking in kind terms? Like, how do you keep yourself kind of polished and ready to bring that kindness to other people?
I think as a leader, I probably err on the side of maybe, well, I've learned the hard way because I think I was too kind, and I might sometimes still be too kind. I will tell you, one of our company values is do what's right. And I will say that is the value I go to most when I have to make hard decisions. And, when I talk about being kind in a hard decision, as a recruiting firm, we're helping companies hire people, and then we get paid by the hiring company when those people perform and stay. And so in a situation where, let's say our client, fires someone, or, that we brought them, we don't get paid. So much work was put in, and I have to now make this decision. Do what's right. My client wants their money back. Is that the right thing to do? And, the integrity of the business and our future relationship, and contractually, the candidate, the job seeker is, upset with us because we didn't make the right match, and they want to point the finger at someone. And then my employee is upset because they're not getting commission, but they still put in all the work, even though the rules are clear around, terms and guarantee dates. But when I think about do what's right, my mentality, it's very situational. But for the first 10 years of my business, I didn't think that way. What was right was making the customer happy. And so for 10 years, give them the money back. Like, I don't want them our relationship is the priority with the client, and I don't want them to experience something that they'll go talk poorly, because we both know people love to, talk about bad experiences, not good ones. So sure. I would always defer to the client. And sometimes I still do that, but I feel like now, I really think about these decisions of like, do what's right is my North Star, but right for who? There's a lot right for me. I didn't even put myself into the equation, or the person's manager who helped them through the process, and now they have to deal with a disgruntled employee who's not getting commission. Like, I think that has been, like how I make those decisions, and how I just try and think about putting myself in everyone's shoes, and then deciding what is the right way to proceed.
Yeah, I think perspective taking is a huge piece of great leadership, and it's a huge piece of kindness. You can't truly be kind to somebody if you don't understand them, if you aren't trying to listen and be curious and try to figure out what's going on for this person. And you mentioned this phrase of like being too kind. Can you dig in just a little bit more on that? Is it that it was not okay to lead with those values, or is it that you feel like you're losing a little bit in terms of business, like you've lost a little bit in terms of dollars and cents, or what do you mean by that?
Definitely, I have put people over profit at the wrong time sometimes, and that is probably the hardest lesson I have learned as a leader. Is I feel very strongly about people over profit. My fulfillment comes from people, not profit. I look at the success of our business as people, not profit. But there is a point that you don't have people if you don't have profit. Sure. And I think that has been like the hardest part, is that there are I have made decisions. I have kept people, give them a second chance, give them a third chance sometimes. And, just had the empathy for employees. I mean, even clients and other partners, but employees specifically. I have made the wrong decisions. And in retrospect, it's always very clear. Like, wow, if we would have made our decisions 6 months earlier, we wouldn't have lost that client, or so there's always rationale for what we could have done. But I try not to go there. I try to just stay focused on what I'm capable of today.
Right. So it sounds like it's an ever shifting sense of where is the line drawn?
Yeah.
So so for everybody listening in or watching, hopefully in your notes you're kind of shaping like what are those questions you have to ask yourself in order to stay on the right path for yourself, for your colleagues, and for your company. So I just absolutely love that. It is a balancing act.
Yeah, and it's an evolution.
Yeah. So I want to shift just a little bit because our Future is Kind podcast is trying to do two things. It's really kind of one thing, but it's two things. The first is to establish what should the future look like. If we all had the ideal future, what does that look like? Because you can't hit a target if you don't have a target. You have to establish it. So that's one big thing. The other thing is, how do we get there? What are the kind acts? What are the acts of courage to get us to that future? So let's kind of dissect it here and just do the first part first.
Yeah.
Pretend that it's 2125. And if you want to talk about flying cars, you can.
Okay.
But 2125, what are those good things that you see about the world that are maybe cured from 2025? What are the things that are suddenly really good in that future vision that you have? What do you like about the future?
Wow, that's a good question that I'm like, I could answer this so many ways. I think it's human respect. And, I don't want to go too deep and think about like, well, politics and, just commercialism and business, like all these things that get in the way or are barriers or excuses. But I think that's what we lack is just general human respect and connection. And I think you and I, we have similar philosophies. Like we are still like a spiritual being in a human body. We're all going through stuff. We're all, we are all connected. But, I have a post I wrote on LinkedIn maybe last year where I took a walk down a path in my neighborhood and I saw 13 people on this path. It's like a 2-mile path. And I made eye contact and smiled at every person, and like 2 people smiled back at me. And it's like, why? Like, is it their insecurity? Are they mad? Are they not thinking to look up because some of them did look at me and not smile. And it's like, why is that unusual? Because the people who did smile back made my day, and I bet I made their day. And it was just, and so it's like simple things like that. And then when you think of how that would spread into the workplace, and think of going to the post office and the employees being happy and fulfilled, and you as a customer sense that because of their kindness. And I just use that as a funny example because it's like, no one's ever happy there. So like, how do you get that to be a happier environment? It's got to come down to like the way we treat each other.
Yeah. No, I love how you dive into the granular, because I think we as human beings have this power, so that if you are standing in the line at the post office, and let's say that it's 2125 and maybe we're beaming things someplace, right? But you hand it across the counter to somebody and they have to weigh and measure and they have to collect payment or whatever they do. And if you have that moment of like, hey, how are you? Isn't it lovely weather outside? Maybe in Chicago, it's, look at all the beautiful snow, and isn't it nice that we can be in here and be cozy? Just sharing those moments, that connection. I think that is a beautiful part of what I hope we have in the future. And I'm glad you highlighted that, because it's where I hope we end up as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, I'm not a tech expert and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I think technology, what we've already seen and what we can expect to see, is going to shape a lot. And we could make a pro con list that's probably going to end up being even. And so, with the post office example, the employees are disgruntled because there's always a line of people. People's requests are annoying. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a cycle of, and then their whatever rubs off on the customers. But if technology can make things easier, where I literally just have to hand you the package, smile, and walk away, and that's how every transaction works. Like, not that you want to take away the human contact and you want to be able to do everything online or, curbside, but there is this aspect where, like, in a way, social media has made us great and it has hurt us in so many ways. And that's just, we have no idea what's ahead, but it's going to keep happening like that, I think.
So keep the human element alive while we are navigating all of these new technologies. I think that's...
And use technology as a tool and a stepping stone, not a replacement. It's freeing up our time to be more human. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that's the future of business too, is like, let's use technology the right way. And it's not so you can work 30 hours a week instead of 40. It's so those extra 10 hours you can be more intentional. I mean, if people had an extra 10 hours and you said during those 10 hours, all you have to do is connect with your fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? I know that's a little much, but even if you dedicated 1 hour a week and you felt like you had that time because technology is working in the background. So it already is, but it's going to continue.
Right. Yeah. I'm hopeful that the future, whatever it looks like, if there are moving sidewalks or whatever is going to be there for us, if AI has really taken over lots of pieces of mundane things. I love the idea that you said, like, let us be more human. I think that's the beautiful part of envisioning the future. So in order to get to this future where we all feel a bit more connected, where we can have those nice exchanges, where we're on a walk and people feel a little bit more free to engage with each other, what are the brave acts of kindness that we need right now in order to get us to that future so that people feel more permission to connect?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think, some people may say I was brave that I made eye contact and smiled. Yeah. And like that, like maybe that was brave of me and brave of the two people who smiled back, because that's just not what we do. But I think it goes both ways. You've got to, if you're in a position to make space for someone else to be brave, I think that is a big responsibility. And, like just in a business setting, I'll tell you a quick version of a story that one of our employees luckily felt comfortable enough with me that when I caught her in the hall after she'd been out of the office for a few days, we ended up having a conversation. And, I made the space, but that's not what it's about. She opened up. She had the courage to tell me that she'd been out because she had a miscarriage, which ended up to us creating a policy for all of our employees if they're struggling. And it was, yes, I made the space by making eye contact and saying, how have you been? I noticed you were out last week, and her being brave enough to open up. So I think it's two sides of it, and we always play both roles. So thinking about what role you play in those situations.
Yeah, I think it's up to all of us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the bottom line. And that's the responsibility. And we're all leaders, and it's just showing up by example.
Yeah, those moments don't have to be substantial and lengthy and have to have one person have a major title and another person doesn't. It can be in any interaction where you can shine light into the room with a kindness practice that's robust enough. And
exactly.
So, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That whole, things. What's that?
Simple things. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, having empowered all of our audience here now to think about how they can become those engines of kindness to help us build the future that we want to live in. I want to ask you, what are the things that keep you inspired and excited about the future, that keep you thinking about, hey, oh, here's how we can be kinder? Are there TV shows that you watch? Are there movies or books, podcasts? What do you get into that you're like, oh man, if I have an extra hour this weekend, extra couple hours, this is what I want to engage in, because it always makes me feel great and inspired and ready to go.
How woo do you want me to get? No, I'm just kidding.
Almost everything.
Yeah. Let me think about that. Well, let you answer that. I'd love to hear your response to that. And what do you do?
It depends on my mood, but one of the things that I will watch is The Good Place. It's got Kristen Bell and Ted
I've never
Danson,
seen
and
it.
it is brilliant because it's this conceptual idea of philosophically, if we're doing good things, if we're doing bad things, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for our souls? How do we lift other people? How do we live? And so that's more of like a spiritual journey, and so I love that show. And then any of the Star Trek series, it's got that future tech feel to it, but it's also the who's allowed to be at the table, who is honored, who is revered. And it's always in those Star Trek series, it's always the people who are inclusive, people who are listening and curious, people who are kind and compassionate, people who try to see past the surface. Because they've got laser guns and they can beam people to places and they're on starships, and that stuff is really cool. But it's how they interact with each other that keeps me coming back every time.
Wow. That's such an interesting perspective. I've never heard that perspective of that show. I mean, I saw it as a kid, but that's a really great answer. So I think I'll take the spin that I have learned in order to be kind to others, I have to be kind to myself. And like, there's things I do now, they're almost subconscious that I do for myself every day. And I know that gives me the energy to then give. And if I don't give it to myself first. So, like taking a walk. I mean, that is, if I can take a walk and get outside, fresh air, walk my dog, like that will change my mood immediately. But I practice yoga most mornings at 6 a.m. And as much as it's like, oh my God, I'm getting up in the 5s and I'm exhausted, it's my sacred time where I put my phone down and no one's doing anything at 6 in the morning. So I know it's me and me. And so I think it's like those little things that I'm able to sprinkle in. And then, as you know, I just did something that was really out of my comfort zone. And I went on a solo trip and I went away for 3 nights by myself. And that was like the ultimate fuel. I felt like, I'm like, gosh, I have to do this at the end of every year, because I was burning and I was at the end of my matchstick. And then I was like, I just have to pour more back into myself. And that meant being alone with no responsibilities. And that's what I needed. So I did it. I normally would not have done something like that.
I think connecting with yourself is something that everybody who listens to this podcast really needs to hear and think about, because we always say, oh, I wish I meditated more, or gosh, I wish I did gratitudes every morning and wrote it out, or I did some form of exercise and connecting to my body, like yoga, connecting to pets. I love that because I know you and I both love animals, and I've got a couple of dogs and a couple of cats, and it's just, I mean, they love us regardless of what we're doing,
Right. Oh, it's the best lesson of unconditional love that there is.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully everybody take notes. Go try some yoga. Charlie, if you have any particular yoga, like videos that you watch or practices that you engage in?
I would say my advice, I mean, there's a million videos, and it's the practice that feels good and will change you mentally and physically. But I would say go to a yoga class, like find a beginner class, because there's something about the energy and the community, and like, that's what I go back for as much as I go back for the stretching and, the consciousness and the, flowing meditation every day. It's this energy in the room. So, you got to start somewhere. I never thought I would be a yogi, and I went to one class begrudgingly, and look what happened 14 years later. I'm practicing almost every day.
Wow. So
Yeah.
14 years of practice, and now do you teach classes a lot?
No, I don't teach classes at all. It's a big commitment to get trained, and it's a big undertaking, and it's a bucket list item. So, when I retire, I'll become a yoga teacher. And no, I really have a lot of interest in learning how to be a teacher, and then, maybe using it one day, but not now.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, I have seen you blossom in so many different directions. I have no doubt that you are going to become renowned for your yoga teaching at some point. So, I would love for you to tell everybody here, what are the big things that you're working on? How can people support you? How can people reach out and connect with you and kind of align with what you are doing?
Appreciate that. I'll say it first, that, if anyone out there is listening needs a recruiting firm in supply chain or logistics, that is what our firm does. We help companies hire professionals within the greater industry. So that is first and foremost. But to connect with me as a human, which is what it's all about, reach out on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my day. What I've got planned is, I am the CEO of my business, so running the company is a good 80% of my time, but also pursuing some of the stuff that really does fill me up, which is, I speak as part of my role as CEO, but also being able to speak conversations like this that really have nothing to do with my recruiting business, or to audiences of women that can relate to, where I am or where I've been. So starting to make my way in that direction a little and see where it goes.
So I know that you have a brilliant TED Talk, and so I'm going to encourage everybody who's watching this, as soon as you finish this episode, go and check it out. But you mentioned that you do a lot of speaking now, or that's something that you're blossoming out and doing more of. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken in our industry at, different conferences and organizations for many years, but really starting to share a broader message that goes beyond just, recruiting and retaining talent. And it, dips into the idea of, creating cultures of kindness and care. But even beyond that, like how we as individuals can show up and influence and contribute. So that's kind of like trust me, my industry needs to hear that message more than any industry. But it's kind of exciting to be in a space now where it's like nothing's off limits. Everyone needs this message. And, I can go out there and not talk about trucks for an hour, and it feels refreshing.
Well, we're glad that you're here and talking about kindness as well as trucks. So
yeah, exactly. I got it in.
Charlie Saffro, any last word of wisdom that you want to leave everybody with?
Oh, wow. I mean, I can't wait for your audience to hear your talks. I've been lucky enough to hear them behind the scenes. And I think just your message, obviously kindness, but really going so much deeper, is inspiring and amazing. And I'm going to promote you. I think that's my final parting words is, I'm excited to see where you're going.
Well, I appreciate that plug, and your check is in the mail. But no, seriously, it is a lot of fun to play in that same space where you are, getting on stage, and also trying to just make the world better and make sure that people hear the messages of how to be a great leader and how to infuse what you do every day with kindness. It is a lot of fun. So, Charlie Saffro, what a treat, what a delight, what a blessing to have you with us today. Thank you so much for coming on our Futures Kind podcast.
My pleasure.
The kindness challenge for this episode: be the leader who makes space for brave honesty. This week, check in genuinely with a colleague or friend. Ask how they really are. Listen without fixing. Kindness doesn't need a program, it just needs presence. Where can you find inspiration? Charlie reminds us that kindness starts with caring for ourselves. So, go take a walk, practice yoga, or stretch in silence. Go cuddle one of your pets. We are thrilled to share that Charlie Saffro is now serving on the advisory board for the Human Summit, a global gathering of kind-hearted changemakers committed to building a more connected, compassionate future. The Human Summit is co-chaired by Kevin Hunting, a previous guest on this podcast, and myself. The Human Summit will take place virtually on November 13th, 2025, World Kindness Day. The event brings together thought leaders, corporate innovators, educators, activists, and everyday heroes to explore how empathy, courage, and intentional kindness can transform our workplaces and our world. Charlie's voice, grounded in leadership, authenticity, and care, makes her a perfect guide for this journey. Stay tuned for more details, and we hope you'll join us in shaping a more human future. Thanks again for listening to our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.